Hello, my name is Abigail Dunbar. Thank you for participating in this interview, and thank you, the audience, for listening. We'll be discussing human trafficking and just an anonymous interview on someone from Catawba County's experience.
So, this is where it all started. I was young, as, well, most are, and it came from someone who you least expect, someone who you think was always supposed to be there for you, supposed to protect you. It was my father, and he told me one day that we were going to take a trip. I didn't know exactly where we were going, nor did I care. I mean, I couldn't have been older than 8. But I don't know if this was induced, either medically or maybe I was just a tired kid, but I fell asleep in the car ride. I don't know where I went, the general direction. Hell, I don't even know if I remember that. But when we got there, I just remember it being this large warehouse kind of building. Had more of an industrial feel to it, and I just remember unchaining doors and going inside, and they're just kind of being, it's almost a sense of there's no one there, but it feels like everyone's there. And even though physically there wasn't many people there, and I just remember, I was still drowsy, tired, so I don't remember much. I just remember someone handing my father money, and then my father handing me to them. So I didn't understand what was going on or what was going to happen. But after that interaction, I was taken into a room where I was told to undress and all this. They kind of it's insane how organized this was. They took everything off, they put it in a plastic bag, ziplocked it, and put, not my name, but more my father's name on it. And after that, they just took me into a little room with other kids in it. We were all naked, men, women. The biggest thing was most of them were kids, but some of them were adults too. And when I say adults, I don't mean, none of them could have been older than 40. Maybe the oldest was 35, but we were all sitting in this room naked and no one spoke because I feel like I was the only one there who didn't understand at the time what was going on, but everyone knew. Except me, because I still was yet to experience what was about to happen. I was there in this warehouse type building for 2.5 days. And sometimes I like to round up to 3, but for this 2.5 days. The first day is exactly what people think it's like. They took me into another room. And this warehouse, it's like they had walls set up. They never reached the ceiling. It was almost like cubicles that were both walls that were 7-8 feet tall, so you could still hear everything that was going on around you. And it was just this room with a singular chair. And with me, because I was young, I was too small for any real sexual intercourse. The only thing I was there to do was to please these people with either my mouth or my hands. And now, unlike prostitution, I wasn't paid for that. So, sorry, a little bit of humor. But there certainly were others who tried. It didn't work. I'm too small. And another thing that's surprising to people, I've rarely told anyone about this, but it was men and women. And it wasn't just the people who you think it would be. You know, you don't think it's these big burly men who just look like crime. No, it looks like everyday people. They just regular people. And there weren't many women there, but there were some that came in and decided that's what they wanted to do. This is this person who I want to have these sexual interactions with, and it was kids. But after, it was just all day of this. They fed us. Wasn't good food, but they fed us. Then they kind of took us back to the room after a certain amount of time, and everything happened in this small room. Everyone was in there. We always slept there. We ate there. And when we weren't in there, we were in either the other room with the chair in it, or we went to this, kind of like this, the back of the warehouse. It was an open space. You had more of a warehouse feel. And there were just these giant boxes. I don't know what the boxes are used for, but, or like, not, I know what they're used for, but, I mean, the boxes. But what was in the boxes, I didn't really know. I still don't know, obviously. But they had us kind of move these boxes constantly between here, the door, here, the door, here, the door. It was almost as if they were just using us as free child labor, which is just what it was. And that's all I did my second day, which they kind of rotate you between the chair and the back. And when you're in the back, you're being beat if you're not moving fast enough, or if you're not moving the boxes, or if you say you're tired, you get beat. And it's, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to make this comparison, but it kind of almost felt like slavery. And it's not the best experience, clearly. But after the second day, I thought I was in for this for life. I thought it was over, I was done for. And honestly, it made me want to kill myself while I was there. Because I was so done, I couldn't do this anymore. But that's when I was picked back up by my father. On the second day, I don't necessarily know if he bought me back, so to say, or if this was like, I hate to say this, but like Rent-A-Kid, where you pay a certain amount of time, boom, here's my kid for this amount of time, I want the bag eventually. But it just, I don't know. It's a fucked up world we live in. Any questions?
Thank you so much for sharing. I know that it means a lot to share an experience like that, and I deeply appreciate it. When you were picked back up for your father, did you feel like you had a safe place to return to, or did you live in fear that that would occur again?
Not too long after, he was eventually picked up and put in prison for domestic violence and rape on several accounts. However, I don't feel like I was ever truly safe until he was gone. And it's just amazing how, no, he was always a piece of work, he was always abusive, but it just, even so, it was still home, but after that experience, it never felt like home until he was gone, you know?
Thank you. Did you ever talk to any authorities about your experience? Did you feel like you had that support?
From my experience, me personally, with how young I was and with who all knew, which was just me and my father, I never spoke out about it. And even to this day, no one really knows what happened. But and honestly, it doesn't bother me. He's serving a 35-year term. He's gonna come out and he'd be older than dirt and he can't do anything to hurt anybody anymore. But out of fear, I didn't really want to open up about it. I didn't feel like I could. But I don't think that was the community's fault. I think that was just me being a scared kid.
Do you feel like there was anything about the people in the warehouse? Do you feel like the way they talked to you, did they make it seem like you weren't allowed to talk about it, or was there not much communication at all?
I think what they were now looking back on it, I think they didn't care what to say. They just wanted to get in there, get their fun and leave. And I don't think they were ever too worried about, oh, is this child going to say something? Because, I mean, this is already a traumatic event, and they would be, I mean, I'm not going to remember their face. I mean, I only have anywhere between, around estimate, 30 minutes to an hour with them. So it's just, I don't think it ever crossed their mind. But no, my father did persistently tell me, you can't tell anyone where you went or else you're going to go back. Kind of like a threatening, kind of made me feel trapped a little bit.
Did you feel like it was your fault, or were you aware that this was something that was not supposed to happen?
Honestly, as old as I was, I didn't really know about sex or anything of the matter, so I didn't know what really was going on. All I knew is I didn't really like it, so I kind of figured that it was wrong in some way. Like, first of all, why are these people hitting me, let alone what the hell am I doing to them? But I don't think I ever blamed myself. I just wondered why it had to happen, you know?
Thank you. Were the people, the other victims, were they like female and male? Was there a mix? Was there a majority?
There was definitely a mix. I mean, I think the majority of them were kids, but it seems like the older they were, the more female the age group became. So, like, for instance, if you had a group of, well, like for us, 8, 9, 7, right around there were more males. But, however, if you go up 13, 14 and above, it seemed like there were more females. So.
And I feel like people think that it only happens to like, 15, 13, whatever year old girls.
Yeah.
Was like 7 the youngest it was? Did you see anybody younger than that?
There were a few that I think could have been younger, but I don't think anyone there could have been younger than 5 or older than 35. But yeah, that stereotype is always something that's kind of sat with me because it probably happens to between 13 to maybe 16, 17-year-old girls the most. It doesn't disclude the rest. And there were probably younger than that this has happened to and older, but it's just, I want this to open people's eyes that it can happen to anybody, anywhere, and you never really know who else is taking a part in it either.
Thank you. I don't know how many people you've shared your experience with, but do you feel like you felt any stereotypes or misconceptions when you've tried sharing your experience?
I think the biggest thing is people, when someone says human trafficking, what they kind of, the first thing, and I've asked people this before, like they'll talk about human trafficking, I'm like, what do you think human trafficking is, like genuinely? Just as kind of a conversation, kind of a weird conversation, but still a conversation. They always kind of seem to think, oh, it's foreign, or people from out of country are being shipped here, or it's all like the stereotypical, oh, I have this truckload of Filipino women kind of thing. But it's not just international or foreign, it's local. It could be happening 3 doors down from you and you never know, and it's not just Filipino women, quote unquote. It's everyone. It's boys, it's girls, it's kids, it's adults, it's everyone. It's a threat.
Thank you. Was there a recovery process that you went through? Did you feel like in your later years that you had resources that you could go to, whether that be therapy or,
So, for me personally, we never really could afford therapy. Later on in life, in high school is when I started seeing a therapist, but throughout my life it was more of just talking to people. I found kind of coping and being social, and because I found that the more I talk to people, the less I have time to think about what's happened. But then there's a drawback to that, because every night you sit there and you wonder, who's there right now? Are they gonna get out? And you gotta sit back and count yourself lucky, even though you don't feel lucky, Yeah.
do you feel like as citizens and your community, there's anything that you wish people knew more about and that they knew about like human trafficking to help people who reach out to them?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing is opening up about it. Is being able to have those hard conversations. Like you were talking about, you were nervous for this and you're not even the one talking. It's a hard subject, but it doesn't have to be. I think the connotation that we have around it that, oh, they have to completely remain anonymous and that, oh, we can't talk to them because what if their kidnappers find them? It's easier to remain anonymous than people think. And we need to help them. We need to provide them stuff and support and therapy and rehab, not rehab, but counseling, if you will. And I think as a community, like bringing down to Catawba County or opening a shelter, something for trafficking victims, for rape victims, because you hear, oh, I was raped, I went to the shelter, but everywhere I've went, I've never seen a shelter. It's always talked about, but I've never seen them. So it just kind of making those more local would help, in my opinion.
Do you feel like opening a shelter or something like that is something that Catawba County could do to support people?
I definitely think it could, or even just opening one in any of the surrounding counties, because Catawba County is kind of a small county, I'm not going to lie. We can go to a neighboring county, but just having one that's not an hour away in Charlotte. So.
Is there anything else that you feel like North Carolina or Catawba specifically could do for victims?
Honestly, I think other than it's got to start with just getting rid of the norm of they have to stay anonymous and there's nothing we can do or talk to them about without, oh no, their identity's revealed. Like for instance, this interview, sometimes this would be frowned upon because it's like, oh, you're talking to a victim about them being a victim, someone's going to find out. No, no one's going to find out when this interview happened, who it happened with, other than me and you. It's not hard. It's all about trust. And that's another thing that's going to be hard, is trusting people after that experience. But it can happen. We can build it back up.
Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to share today?
Keep hope and don't start looking around people and just immediately being like, oh, this person looks like they're a human trafficker, because it's not all who you think it is. It can happen to anyone, so don't count out the people who you think it couldn't have happened to. Just, no offense, but like, I feel like most people never would have thought this would have happened to me, but just because of the person I am now, just personable, open, talking, there's always this stereotype that, oh, something bad happened to them in their past, they're quiet, they don't want to talk, nothing, they're just always hurting. No, it can take trauma, and the effects of it can take on many different forms. So just always be conscious of what you're talking about and who you're talking about it around.
Thank you so much for your time and participation.
Of course.
Thank you for sharing your experience and being so vulnerable in this place. Hearing from someone who has endured something like that can mean a lot to any viewers or listeners, and it can be so eye-opening and inspiring, and I just want to thank you. And thank you for listening and taking the time to listen to this. Bye-bye.